All right, AI fans, ready for a deep dive. We've got some stories shaking up the AI world, and I think you're going to want to hear this. We're talking about Disney, podcasts, open source, and even some controversy, so buckle up.
Yeah, these are definitely some big developments worth exploring, especially if you're into all things AI.
Okay, so let's jump right in. First up is Disney. They seem to be planning a massive AI initiative, and we're not just talking about a couple of side projects here.
No, the rumors are saying hundreds of people are involved.
That's huge. Like, what could they even be working on at that scale?
Well, if you look at Disney's history, they've always been at the forefront of tech, especially when it comes to pushing the boundaries of storytelling.
Right, from animation to visual effects,
Yeah.
they've consistently been early adopters.
Exactly. So AI seems like a natural next step for them. I mean, their CEO, Bob Iger, even said, don't fixate on its ability to be disruptive, fixate on its ability to make us better and tell better stories.
Okay, yeah. It
Oh,
does sound like they're really embracing it.
Rich Greenfield, an analyst at Lightshed Ventures, pointed out that Disney's always been keen on strategic partnerships, especially in tech.
Interesting. So you think this AI initiative could involve collaborations with other companies?
It's definitely a possibility, but on the other hand, there's this whole other side to this. I mean, with all the recent layoffs and unionization efforts in VFX departments, it's hard not to wonder how creatives are going to react to this.
Yeah, this big AI push could be seen as a real threat to their jobs.
Exactly. It'll be really interesting to see how Disney balances using AI with supporting their human workforce, because there's definitely potential for conflict there.
Okay, let's move on to something a little different. Have you heard about the Virtually Parkinson podcast series?
Oh, yeah. The one with the AI replica of Michael Parkinson. It's pretty wild.
It really is. Can you believe it?
Yeah.
They're using AI to recreate his voice and interview style based on thousands of hours of recordings.
Right. The company behind it, Deep Fusion Films, has access to a huge archive of his interviews, over 2,000 to be exact. So they're using that to basically bring his interviewing expertise back to life.
It's honestly a bit eerie, but also fascinating.
And you know what's kind of cool? Parkinson's family and estate are actually fully on board with this project. They see it as a way to honor his legacy.
Oh, wow, that's nice. I was kind of wondering about that, how they would feel.
His son, Mike Parkinson, said that the podcast is really a tribute to my dad. And one thing I like is that they're being transparent about how it's made. They're using something called the Squawk system, which allows live interaction with the AI, and the AI host is actually going to acknowledge right from the start that it's digital.
Well, that's good. It's important to be upfront about that sort of thing.
Absolutely. Okay, ready for some open source news?
Hit me with it.
Meta just launched NotebookLlama.
NotebookLlama.
Yeah, it's their open source answer to Google's NotebookLM. Essentially, it's an open source version, meaning anyone can use it and tinker with it.
So how does it compare to NotebookLM? Is it just as good?
Well, some folks are saying NotebookLlama's output might not be quite as polished as NotebookLM's.
But I guess the open source aspect is a big deal, right?
Definitely, because now developers all over the world have access to this technology, which could lead to some really interesting developments.
Okay, so what can you actually do with NotebookLlama? I've heard it can create podcast-like summaries.
Yeah, you can do that. It's actually pretty amazing. Imagine taking, let's say, a PDF, processing it, turning it into a transcript, and then having the AI rewrite that in a more engaging, almost like dramatic style. And finally, you use text-to-speech to make it sound like a real podcast.
Whoa, it's like having your own personal AI podcast studio.
It kind of is. And this all ties in with Meta's bigger push for open source AI, with Llama, their language model.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that.
Well, Meta's CEO, Mark Zuckerberg, called this AI's Linux moment, suggesting it could become as big as Linux was for operating systems.
Wow, Linux moment.
Yeah.
That's a pretty bold statement.
It is. But it shows how seriously they're taking this open source approach.
I'm definitely curious to see how that plays out.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see what comes out of this whole open source movement in AI. It's a game changer, for sure.
Okay, so we've talked about Disney's big AI plans and this wild AI Michael Parkinson podcast. But now let's get into something a little more, controversial. OpenAI's Whisper transcription tool.
Oh, right. The one that's been making things up.
Yeah, exactly. It seems like it has a bit of a problem with accuracy, or rather a tendency to just, fabricate stuff.
It's called hallucinations, and it's actually a pretty big concern in the AI world right now. Because, think about it, especially in situations where accuracy is super important.
Take in healthcare. Imagine a medical transcription that's just completely wrong.
Right. A misdiagnosis based on made-up text or a treatment plan that's based on something that was never even said, it could have serious
And
consequences.
it's not just hypothetical. Researchers have found examples of whisper adding things that were never actually spoken.
Like what?
Oh, all sorts of crazy stuff. Racial commentary, violent scenarios, even completely made-up medications. Like things that just didn't exist in the original audio.
Wow. And how often is this happening?
Well, that's the thing. It seems to be happening pretty frequently. Researchers and developers are reporting that they're finding these hallucinations in a significant number of the transcripts they're analyzing.
That's a bit unsettling.
It is, and it makes you think twice about using Whisper,
Yeah.
especially considering it's being used in so many different fields.
And even in some medical centers I read for transcribing patient consultations.
Seriously. Even though OpenAI has specifically warned against using it in high-risk situations.
Yeah, it seems like some folks are willing to take that risk, even though the potential consequences could be pretty severe.
It's a tough call. Because on the one hand, this technology is incredibly powerful and can save a ton of time and effort. But on the other hand, if it's making things up, that's a huge problem.
Especially if the original audio recordings are deleted, because then there's no way to go back and verify if the transcript is accurate or not.
Yikes. So what can be done about this? Is OpenAI working on fixing it?
Well, they're definitely aware of the issue, and experts are urging them to prioritize reducing these hallucinations in their models. There's also a big push for more transparency and accountability in how these AI systems are developed and deployed, particularly in sensitive areas like healthcare.
That makes sense. I mean, if AI is going to be used in these high-stakes situations, there has to be a higher level of trust. We need to be confident that it's going to be accurate.
Absolutely. And that just highlights the importance of ongoing research and really rigorous testing.
Mhm.
As AI becomes more and more integrated into our lives, we need to be extra vigilant about identifying and addressing potential issues like these hallucinations.
For sure. So, for people who are using Whisper right now, is there any way to spot these hallucinations? Or is it basically impossible to tell?
Well, it's not always easy, but there are some things to watch out for.
Oh, like what?
Researchers have found that hallucinations are more likely to occur during pauses in speech, when there's background noise, or even when music is playing in the audio.
So basically, in those situations, it's best to be extra cautious and not just blindly trust the transcript.
Exactly. And if you can, always keep a copy of the original audio recording as a backup, just in case you need to verify something.
That's good advice. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground today. From Disney's huge AI push to the AI Michael Parkinson podcast, and then the open source world with NotebookLlama, and of course this whole Whisper controversy. What are your final thoughts on all of this?
Well, I think it just goes to show how quickly things are changing in the AI world. I mean, we're seeing things that were once considered science fiction becoming reality, and that's exciting, but it also means we need to be careful and really think about the implications of these advancements. AI is a powerful tool, and like any tool, it can be used for good or bad. So I think it's crucial to understand its capabilities, but also its limitations.
Absolutely. AI is definitely a double-edged sword.
Exactly. And I think it's important for everyone, not just experts, to be aware of what's going on in this field and to engage in these conversations about the potential impact of AI.
Well said. And for all you AI enthusiasts out there, I think these stories are a perfect example of why it's so important to stay informed, stay curious, and keep exploring this amazing and sometimes a little bit scary world of artificial intelligence. Thanks for joining us for another deep dive.